Good evening. On behalf of the commissioners and staff, I would like to welcome you to the November 28th City of Roseville Public Utilities Commission meeting. This 7-member commission is responsible for studying and advising the City Council regarding all utilities owned or operated by the city, including electric, water, wastewater, and solid waste. The Public Utilities Commission advises the City Council regarding planning, rates, public information, cable television franchises, and other matters relating to such enterprises, and may also hear citizen complaints as to operation or rates. The Public Utilities Commission also advises the City Council regarding the activities of such joint powers agencies as the city may be a member of or which relate to such utility enterprises. At this time, I would like to ask everyone to please put your electronic devices on silent. Pam, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Knox has an excused absence. Commissioner DeMarchi?
Here.
Commissioner DeLacy?
Here.
Chair Webb?
Here.
Commissioner Bilski?
Here.
Commissioner Maish also has an excused absence. Commissioner Springer? Here. Thank you.
Commissioner Springer, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 4 on our agenda is public comments. This item is for anyone who would like to address the commission on any item that's not on tonight's agenda. When addressing the commission, please state your first name and last for the record. Not seeing any public commission, I would like to move to approval of minutes. Item 5.1 is at the approval of the October 24th, 2023 meeting minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve.
And do I have a
Second it.
second? Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
Same.
Motion passes. Next on our agenda is the requests and presentations. Our first item is our environmental utilities monthly update. This report is going to be by our wastewater utility manager, Brian Buchanan, summarizing the monthly status of the environmental utilities activities. Thank you.
Hello, Chair Webb and Commissioners. I don't have a whole lot to report tonight, but I'll start with waste services. Obviously, with the fall, green waste tonnage is up dramatically, as expected. They are not having any issues, though there are leaves everywhere, and it's making it quite a mess. In the water utility, I don't really have an update, but I do have just a reminder that there's a celebration to celebrate the 2 new aquifer and storage, aquifer recovery and storage wells in the West Roseville. It's Solaire. I can't remember the other name of the well, but it's on December 5th at 10 a.m. at the John L. Sullivan Park. So that'll be a fun, chilly celebration. For the wastewater utility, I don't have too much. I was going to sit here and talk about the wastewater utility for an hour, but we do have, we're getting ready for the wet weather. We've had a paradigm shift this last winter. We had, a pretty big string of dry years, dry winters, and for the wastewater utility, that is, believe it or not, a relief. We don't have to deal with those wet weather peaks and those emergencies. But this last winter was a reminder of what can happen. So we are, this time of year, we're getting ready for that wet weather. Everything from buttoning up capital projects and getting the plants and collection systems ready for whatever may come. But that's where we're at right now. We're ready. And then the only project, I won't steal Jason's thunder, but the only project I'll comment on is we have a project at the Pleasant Grove Wastewater Treatment Plant. It's an SPWA, the South Placer Wastewater Authority funded project. It's an expansion of their UV disinfection system. That is, believe it or not, it's being driven by some of this wet weather. When we get wet weather, we still have to treat and disinfect all of it. So with these peak flows, we are being pushed to do a project like that. And so that project construction just started, let's say about a week or two ago. So that's underway. It's going to be a long project, probably at least over a year and a half long, just because we have to continue to operate the plant. But that's exciting, at least for people like me. So, but with that, that's all I have for the EU update. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Do any commissioners have questions for staff at this time?
I'm just curious, because with my koi pond, I have an ultraviolet thing. How do you treat massive amounts of wastewater with UV? Are these giant, like, UV tubes or something?
They are. So if you, so all the effluent that we treat comes into, we channel it into these basically rectangle channels. And in the channels, there are banks of horizontal tubes of UV. So indeed, so if you're looking at the channel, there's solid bank of UV lights, and the water flows through those lights, and in each channel has 3 banks. So it is a tremendous amount of UV exposure to the water, which is needed for the disinfection. But you know, the more the flow, the more power, and at some point we get to a point where we just can't. We don't have enough lamps to disinfect the flow. So that's the project, is just adding more lamps to that system. But yeah, that is exactly it. It's just,
I just have this
running it
vision
right
of-
by
Yeah.
a lamp.
Okay, thank you.
Is that pretty maintenance intensive, I take it?
It can be. So the bulbs have to be replaced periodically. When they reach, they have a regulatory end of life, and then when they fail, just periodically, we have to change them. But the maintenance is mainly pulling the racks of lights out and cleaning the channel, cleaning the lamps. Even with the UV, we do get algae buildup in the channels. So from a cleaning standpoint, yeah, it is a little bit intensive.
Okay. Do any commissioners have any further questions for staff? Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Not seeing any public comment. Thank you for your updates, Brian.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Next up is our environmental utilities capital improvement projects overview. Tonight's presentation is by process engineer Jason Marks. He will be providing an overview of the environmental utilities capital improvement projects. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair Webb and Commissioners. As just mentioned, I'm Jason Marks, process engineer for environmental utilities, and I lead our technical services group, which one of our core functions is an engineering and CIP group. So today I'm here to talk to you about our capital improvement project summary. And so kind of in the past, we've sat here and we've talked about ongoing projects, and that's great. I'm going to do that as well. I'd also like to touch on a few completed projects, which is we're really excited about. Some projects that you've probably heard about because they're years in the making. So I'm going to first talk about the ones we've finished in the last few months. And the first project I'm going to talk about is our aquifer storage and recovery wells. And Brian just touched on that here a second ago. And we have 2 new wells, Westbrook and Solaire. Those wells were drilled a number of years ago. We have just recently finished the top side, the pump station side, the building and the chemical room and whatnot for those wells. So that's exciting. Yeah, December 5th, I believe, is the ribbon cutting or valve turning, if you will. The second project for the ASR wells is 2 new wells that we were drilled. So we did the below ground work for these, and that's Campus Oaks and Misty Woods. And then the final effort that we're leading now, and those 2 are now complete within the last couple months, And then we're now working on design of the Campus Oaks and Mistywood topside, the pump station and buildings. So just kind of to put a map up there for you, the two new wells that we just built Westbrook is along Westbrook Boulevard. There's a little error on that. The street labeled Westbrook is actually Fitiment. So Westbrook's a little further west than that, but Westbrook well is well 9, and then our Solaire well is adjacent to John L. Sullivan Park, and it's in the Solaire development on the west side of the city. And then the two wells, Mistywood is located off of Pleasant Grove and adjacent to Mistywood Park. And Campus Oaks is in the Campus Oaks development, kind of behind the Nugget parking lot, if that helps. So moving to the next slide, Mistywood, this is kind of a design concept for the well site. We have a little more room at this site. So Pleasant Grove is a busy street, so for safety purposes, we've kind of designed an inlet and an outlet to the well site. We have a little more space at this site, so we're able to do that. We also have residents that you can note, it's there on the left side of the photo. So we do it as best we can for landscaping around there to make it look nice. And so this site also includes, equalization tank and filter, a pump house. This is a concept. We're learning from all our other wells. We're trying to do what we can to improve the design. So this is just a concept, but we're in the midst of the design phase right now. And so to kind of contrast this over at Campus Oaks, very small site. It's surrounded by commercial. Generally, it will be surrounded by commercial. And it's off of Painted Desert Drive. Not a very busy street, but we only have one access point to this building just due to space constraints. So this kind of shows the difference in where we have to kind of pack everything into a smaller square. And we've been working with the developer out there. They were able to get the utilities and the pavement in just before we were drilling the wells, and we came in right behind them. The drill rig is generally 100,000 pounds, so you can't drag that across dirt. So luckily they were able to get Painted Desert Drive paved just before we were out there. And so next project, this is one years and years in the making. Pleasant Grove wastewater treatment plant expansion and the energy recovery project. Very excited about this project because we're happy to relay that we filed the notice of completions for both projects recently. We also, not too long ago, had a ribbon cutting. I think, Brian, you're in that one somewhere. And yeah, this project, $110 million approximately. And I won't go into all the details on this project, but to touch on a few things, and expanded the capacity, allowed us to use natural gas to power our solid waste fleet and digester gas to power microturbines to power the plant. So we're not wasting wastewater. And then just a kind of the next slide just shows an overall process schematic of what we did, a very, very general look at it. But the point of it is we're using as much as we can from the stream to help kind of make this a more green project. So the last kind of completed projects that I want to touch on is the water treatment plant fiber optic and programmable logic controller replacement project. That's a mouthful, but what it really is at the core is a replacement of electric equipment at the treatment plant. Some of the equipment as old as the 1970s, definitely in need of upgrading, and this was a huge undertaking, not only because of the pandemic and how difficult it was to obtain electrical equipment and PLCs, but also to install, test the equipment, and all while keeping the water treatment plant active and providing high quality water to the city. So this project took a couple years, and the last couple PLCs will be done here in December. So I listed it as complete, but it'll be done by the end of the year. So So some very cool projects came to a close. Wanted to touch on those, but also excited about what's ongoing currently. And so the first project I'll touch on is the new Utility Operations Center. And this project will be supporting the solid waste utility and the water utility as we grow. It's to provide the same level of service that we're used to in Roseville. We need more space. So this project will build a facility where we can house staff, but also have a solid waste facility, vehicle maintenance facility, which includes charging infrastructure for the new regulations that we're under here. And then, an admin facility for staff. And this is currently in the planning stages right now. We're doing some design work, but the environmental CEQA work will begin early next year on this project. So the next project, one that I'm really excited about since I have some kids that love going to the UEC, but the Utility Exploration Center renovation project. And this project's going to be built early next year. And this supports not only environmental utilities, but Roseville Electric. And we're building new exhibits that will further the mission of the UEC. The design has been completed and the construction of the exhibits has already begun. We actually viewed those about a month ago. And these exhibits are going to be interactive, fun, educational, and really looking forward to, I know my kid is really looking forward to getting into the cab of the garbage truck that they're putting in the UEC. So yeah, the construction is right now targeted for January and February timeframe with the UEC opening in March. So. And then next couple slides are just renderings. So this is the top view, packed in a lot of stuff in this UEC area. Just wanted to touch on we saw last year 33,000 people in foot traffic through the UEC. Pre-pandemic numbers, we were getting about 36,000. So we're getting close to back to normal. And then the next slide is kind of a side view, and that's the garbage truck cab that will be inside the UEC. So excited for that project. And then just final project I want to touch on is motor control center and switchgear replacement project. And this project, replacement of 5 motor control centers at the Dry Creek wastewater treatment plant and 2 switchgears. I mentioned long procurement times on electrical equipment. These go beyond months of procurement time into years of procurement time. So we chose to pre-purchase some equipment on this to expedite the project as much as possible. So hopefully construction will begin late 2024, but we're waiting on the equipment before we start construction on that one. And then just kind of summary, a robust CIP program. We have well over 50 projects between the water distribution and wastewater treatment and collections and solid waste. And then we have future CIP planning. So if there's any questions from the Commissioner?
Questions for staff at this time? Okay. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Not seeing any public comment. Thank you for your report, Jason.
Thank you.
Item 6.3 is the Roseville Utility monthly update from the electric utility. Today's presentation is by the Chief Operating Officer, Sean Matcham, summarizing the monthly status of the electric utility activities. And thank you for your report.
Good evening, Mayor, Chair Webb.
No.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Change of status.
Yes, Sean Matcham, Chief Operating Officer for Roseville Electric. I have a brief update on a few items for the commission this evening related to our electric utility. We'll hear a presentation later this evening as well on our capital projects, just like you did from EU. Few items that I think are noteworthy for the public and for the commission. The first thing I'd mention is related to an item that our city council took action on at their last meeting, and it relates to the 2025 American Public Power Association Line Workers Rodeo. And Roseville Electric and the city will be hosting this national event put on by APPA to bring this event and conference to Roseville in the spring of 2025. At the city council meeting, at their last meeting, they approved a memorandum of understanding between the city and APPA to host this event. And so it's an item that the electric utility has been part of for many years now, going back, I think, 15 years. And so we have an opportunity to host it here in Roseville, and pretty excited to do that. As a reminder, APPA, for those of you that may not recall, is really an important forum for public power nationally, advocate for the principles of public power, local control and decision-making. And they represent us and other utilities at the national level before Congress, the White House, and before our regulatory agencies, our national regulatory agencies. And so we're going to, Dan Beans, our director, sits on the APPA Executive Committee and was instrumental in raising Roseville's visibility to APPA to host an event here in Roseville. So even though it's called the rodeo, there are no animals involved. It is a competitive event where we will bring about 500 plus utilities nationwide to Roseville and compete on best practices and safe procedures that all our line crews deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so it's a competitive event. Our utility has fared well in the years past, but is also a very important educational event and training event for our teams. And so that will be coming here in spring of 2025. It's also a good opportunity for us to raise visibility for recruitment and retention for our line crews. So such an important part of our operation. It's also going to be a big part of an economic development role to bring this event to Roseville. And so that's one of the things the City Council was certainly excited and supportive about, is to the thousands of folks that will come here for a weekend and have all the retail therapy they need just down the street. We will be partnering with Placer Valley Tourism and the grounds. We'll be hosting it at the grounds. And so we're very excited about it. The City Council just approved the framework for us to move forward with that joint planning with APPA. So more to come on this. We're excited about it. The utility city seems very excited about it. And there's going to be a lot of hype around it in the next year and a half as we gear up to bring this event to Roseville. So I just wanted to note that. You'll hear more about it. Our council approved it at their last meeting. The second thing I want to mention relates to our electric rate proposal. As you all are well aware, we've been watching closely our operating costs to serve the community, to run the utility, and support our businesses and residents here in Roseville. We continue to see persistent and elevated power supply costs in the future. When I talk about power supply costs, I mean our cost to either buy electricity to serve this community or the fuel to produce electricity to serve the community. And so we've been doing the initial internal outreach, if you will, with our city management, our city council, with the commissioners. And so I just wanted to note that we are continuing with that process. We will begin the public outreach part of that process early next year in January. And we will be hosting 3 events that the utility will be hosting, 2 virtual, 1 in-person meeting. And then we'll also be engaged with our neighborhood associations on their standing meetings at Arcona and Sun City. And so I won't share all the details with you now, but a combination of hosted workshops and us being present in the community in January and February are being tentatively scheduled. More information and the specifics about this outreach will be posted on our website here in mid to late December. So folks that are interested in participating can log on to our website and find that information that will be posted here soon. So just wanted to mention that we will begin that public process. We are proposing a rate increase that will affect all our customer classes, And as we've done in other years, we'll do a tremendous amount of outreach with our community, through the neighborhood associations, with our key accounts, all in the spirit of making sure no surprises on what's coming down the pike affecting the community. So I know many of you are aware of it, but that's the plan. We're still working through what the specifics of the rate increases will be, and so we're still crunching the numbers, but we'll be going through that outreach in January and February. The next thing I'll mention is an item really as a follow-up to a report that we gave at the last meeting. I think Dan and Amber were here providing a legislative and regulatory update on the utility, just how we engage with our regulatory agencies, our legislative advocacy, and the platform that we operate under here. During that discussion, there were a lot of questions, and there was a report about the evolving energy markets in California and in the Western United States. And I think it stirred up a dialogue and questioning about what does some of this stuff mean for us as a utility? How does it affect the way we serve the community, our businesses and residents? And so I know we answered some of the questions at the time, but it really was a eye-opener for us to maybe come back to this commission and explain what we see in the market from a utility perspective, and how we expect what we see changing going forward in the market, and how it affects how we do business and how we serve this community. So one of the things that I just wanted to say, that dialogue resonated well with us. I think we wanted, it's a good opportunity to come back and do some education on the energy markets and how they are evolving and how it affects our operations. So we're going to put that on the agenda here early next year to go through that overview. And I think the timing's great. We will be advancing some proposals and a recommendation with our council on how we will participate in some evolving markets going forward. So I think the timing would be great. This is one of those items, we're not really driving the ship as a utility, but the markets around us are changing, and so we need to make sure that we respond to it and that we maintain our trading partners. And that's really what's motivating us to evolve our operations. It affects how we buy and sell power. It affects how we invest in generating assets. It affects how we operate those generating assets. So just wanted to let the commission know, following that discussion, we had an internal discussion, and we look forward to coming back and explaining a little more about what's in front of us and then how it affects what we do. So stay tuned, more to come on that one. The last item I'll mention relates to our strategic plan. As you all may recall, I think early this summer, we engaged in a public workshop facilitated through the commission about updating the strategic plan for the electric utility. We haven't forgotten about that. Since we met, we have had a chance to work internally with a number of our consultants that that are helping on this project. We've also had some strategic planning sessions internally with our leadership and executive team here in the department. And so we're putting the final touches on a draft strategic plan that reflects the feedback we've gotten from stakeholders, the feedback from our staff, which was important. And we plan to come back to the commission as well and present to you what that final product looks like. We expect that'll happen early next year. One of the things that's important for us on this is to have it ready for the next fiscal year, which begins in July for us, so that we can incorporate any of the strategic initiatives, the priorities, and then most importantly, the key performance indicators or stats on our progress. So I just wanted to provide an update on that one. It's been some time since we had our workshop, but just wanted you all to know that there's still work going on in the background on that, and we look forward to sharing what that final product looks with you later, I think early next year, and then we'll go to council for approval. So those are the four items I had that I thought were noteworthy for the commission on the electric utility. It's been a busy time for us, like many departments, as we close out the calendar year and look forward to the big ticket items we've got next year. But I'll stop there with regard to the utilities, electric utilities department update, and I'm glad to answer any questions you have on those items or anything else.
Questions for staff? Yeah.
I got one. You, of course, your projected fuel costs take into account world instability, the Russian-Ukraine mess. As that calms down as that's resolved?
I'm sorry.
As that is resolved, eventually, and it soon will be, I'm sure. Well, we hope there will be.
Yeah.
And of course, then that could affect, in a positive way, affect
Yeah,
fuel costs.
yeah, we could certainly, that could happen. We certainly hope it resolves itself and we see the higher prices dampening out. We're not seeing it yet in a meaningful way. I think it's fair to say that we've seen some of the gas pricing, natural gas pricing, which is, we buy on a forward basis to fuel our power plants. We've seen some of that pricing settle out and come down, but not in a meaningful manner relative to where it was, 2-3 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. It's something we put a lot of focus on. We're looking at new modeling tools to make sure that we're accurately projecting some of the uncertainty that's in the market. And there, obviously, internationally, there's volatility and sensitivity to what's happening. It's affecting prices. But I think, obviously, domestically and even kind of local and federal energy policy has influenced that. And so we're hopeful that it improves. What we're seeing in the market is slight reduction, but going back to the rate case and rate proposal, as you're aware, over 50-60% of our costs are represented by power supply. So there would have to be some meaningful reduction to what we see coming to really change our outlook. But we're hoping it gets a little better.
Well, fuel represents such a huge proportion of your operating costs. So if you get a reduction, major reduction there, it can positively affect your operating costs.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add about it, there has been tremendous volatility in the commodities market, electricity and natural gas over the last couple of years. It's doubled and tripled depending on the kind of points you want to measure. That's translated into 30% increase for us. So I think that reflects the hedging program and hedging policy and the risk management procedures we have in place. It's not a one-to-one, like what's happening in the market is not a one-to-one effect to how we need to go out and raise rates and collect money from customers, but it does affect it. And so in addition for probably hoping for the best and the volatility in the markets settled out, we are internally looking at our hedging programs and our procurement practices to make sure that we're extracting the best out of what we can do as well.
Any more questions? Yeah.
So I'm sure one of the questions you'll end up getting when you go out to the public is, what is the city or Roseville Electric doing to help limit the increases in the future? Are we looking at solar farms or anything else to help with this?
Yeah, we're not looking at solar farms at this point. We've actually, just like we've seen natural gas prices rise significantly, remain elevated, we've seen project development costs go very high as well and stay high for some time, in addition to meaningful delays in projects like solar farms and battery storage coming online. So, our perspective in looking at that is we're trying to keep all options open. When we look at investing in projects, whether it's solar, battery storage, or other technologies, we just want to make sure that we are keeping an open mind and evaluating everything thoroughly, so that when we're making these meaningful investments, we're giving it the proper scrutiny that we need. So I will say directly with regard to solar, we're not doing anything beyond what we need to meet the regulatory compliance requirements like the renewable or carbon-free. But we will need to invest in new projects, and we're doing that. But I don't see that is going to be necessarily the driver to reducing costs, because we're seeing costs on that side also be increased and then delayed. I think the thing that we're really looking at internally to manage these costs is we've really looked internally at going back to our hedging program. That's really where the bulk of our costs are incurred under the power supply and fuel and commodity costs. So making sure that we're buying in the market when it dips, if you will, like being more opportunistic and more nimble in our procurement practices. That's really where a lot of our focus is now, because that's where we get the bang for the buck. Internally, organizationally, we're also looking at just our staffing function. We really haven't, our staffing cost doesn't represent a big cost, but it's the next one down from power supply. So we've really given some scrutiny to our vacancies. Do we need them? Can we reclass them for different purposes? We've not really been adding any headcount to the organization. And we've been able to bring in some technology in the utility that's going to allow us to perhaps even change the overall staffing levels in terms of the number of people we have. So we're trying to gain efficiencies in our operations, but I would say that the biggest thing we're looking at now is how we go out and buy power to be more opportunistic, more efficient with it, and jump on the opportunities when the market dips so that we can jump on it. And that's really where, again, the bang for the buck is. Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Not seeing any questions from the public. I want to say thank you for the updates this evening, Sean. Next up is the Roseville Utilities capital projects overview from our electric utilities. Tonight's presentation is by Assistant Electric Utility Director Eric Campbell and Assistant Electric Utility Director Chris Porter. They'll be providing an overview of Roseville Electric's capital projects.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Webb, Commissioners. I'm Eric Campbell, Assistant Director with Roseville Electric, and I'm joined by Chris Porter. He's our Assistant Director over the Engineering and Compliance function. This is our annual update on our CIP, our Capital Improvement Plan. This is the plan that was approved back during the FY23 planning process. So looking at page 2, this is kind of how we look at our CIP, our budget overall, these 5 major categories. And this was put together with the City Council goals in mind, Roseville Electric's mission to deliver safe, reliable, affordable electricity. So any investment we make it with that in mind. We'll get into more detail on each one of these buckets in subsequent slides, but just to kind of give you a flavor now, we have about $23.6 million in our budget plan for FY23. We haven't deviated from that very significantly, so we'll have a pretty vanilla update for you as we move forward. Next page, this kind of gives you an idea of how we fund our CIPs. You see that first line there is a pretty big chunk. That's from customer rates, $8.3 million. The next line item is greenhouse gas proceeds. And what that is, the state gives us greenhouse gas allowances as part of the state's cap and trade program. We're allowed to sell those into the market for other entities to use those. And so we can use those funds to actually fund capital projects. In this case, we're using that money to fund our advanced metering project. And when you take a step back and look at the advanced metering project, it's about a $40 million investment. Electric's investment in that has been entirely funded by GHG proceeds, so about half of that. And then next is developer fees, and we'll get into this a little bit more. But again, development pays its way. We don't subsidize development, and we ensure that they pay their rightful share of the development. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Chris to walk you through the next couple of slides.
Good evening, Commissioners. So we'll first talk about the new customers. So this is the funding category that's paid for by development. This year we've budgeted $5.4 million in anticipated projects that are going to be required to support new development. We still have, obviously, supply chain constraints, at least on the development front, mainly with transformers. So far, its main effect is on residential. We've been able to keep up with commercial to date. We're still operating under, we issued a modified distribution plan on how we place transformers back when this started in spring of 22, I believe. And at that time, we basically limited the installation of transformers in subdivisions to only be installed where houses are being built. Typically, we used to build out the entire subdivision for efficiencies because we got to pull cable through the entire subdivision. Makes more sense to do it all at once. But in order to continue to supply power where we had homes that needed power, we stopped that practice and we only place them now where they need to go. I will say to date, we have yet to have a residential house in Roseville that was withheld an occupancy permit due to electric not being available. We've been able to continue to supply the transformers as needed. We get them in sporadically. We just got 13 transformers in last week from our Hyundai transformer order that we went to council with back in the summer of 22. It took us that long to receive them. We got 13 last week. We expect another 35 coming in the next couple weeks. So that'll get us stocked for a while on the way we're currently distributing transformers. So we should, for the short term, not have as much concern as we've had at periods of time over the last couple of years. A couple major items that are going to be taking place this year as far as new customer connections go. We have 4 new mainline circuits that will be extended out of the Sierra Vista substation as the city has undertaken on themselves the project to complete Westbrook Boulevard there in front of the substation that allows you to travel from Baseline all the way to Blue Oaks and Westbrook. So with the completion of that, we can finally access our substation. We've been held up because we rely on the road to go in to put our infrastructure in. And so as part of that project, we'll be able to access some capacity out of there that we haven't been able to use yet. Like I said, we've been keeping up with residential construction. This year so far, we've installed transformers in support of 8 new subdivisions that have been started. And we've also installed and completed the infrastructure improvements at the Amazon facility for their EV charging infrastructure. And we've also installed infrastructure for EV charging for buses at the Courtyard. Next slide. Okay, so this category is going to be all of our distribution projects that we have. A couple noteworthy items here of projects that mainly are just getting started this year. Most of these projects end up being multi-year projects that require lengthy procurement processes for major equipment. One of the projects we're doing is we're replacing this 12 kV switchgear at our Kirby substation. That piece of equipment is, I think it was installed back in 1974 or so. It's reached end of life. And it supports, that substation currently serves about 2,000 customers, so it's important for us, for reliability purposes, to replace that type of equipment before it fails based on the number of customers that are supplied by it. We're doing a multitude of 60 kV bus protection upgrades throughout our system. This is just a project that helps just overall increase the overall security and system reliability. We're beginning this year the replacement of remote terminal units. These are basically the computers in the substation that communicate the voltage and the current and all that information that we need to operate the system back to our control operators. So we're replacing those. Those are also reaching end of life, and so we're starting to replace those. And the other major thing is we're going to be, in the near future, going out to bid on a multi-year contract for the procurement of substation transformers. Once that procurement process is complete, we anticipate immediately issuing an order for 2 transformers. One for the Sierra Vista substation. When we built that one, we only installed one of the 2 that it needs. We'll be putting that one in place. And then we'll also be ordering the transformer for the Creekview substation, which we have not begun construction on yet. We anticipate beginning construction on that in a couple years. And that substation will be there to serve the Creekview and Amarosa Ranch specific plans. Next slide is the last major category of equipment that I have is the power plants. Again, we have a number of projects going on here that are in support of the reliable operation of our power plants. One of them is replacing the control equipment on our duct burners for REP. The duct burners are responsible for 25% of the capacity output of the power plant. So it's important that when the controls are upgraded, they last about 10 years on average before we have to replace them. So we have to replace those. We're replacing a belt press on the zero liquid discharge system, which is used for supplying clean water to the power plant for the steam cycle. The belt press is the main piece of equipment that helps remove the large solids from the water. We'll also be starting procurement on the catalyst replacement for REP. That's the device that's basically used to control the emissions output of the power plant. So it's also reaching end of life. That needs to be replaced so we can stay in compliance with our emissions controls. And then finally, similarly related project is the control system that's required to operate the continuous emissions monitoring system. Those controls are also outdated, and we need to replace those controls in order to continue to operate the power plant within the emissions requirements that we have to fall within.
Okay, next we have the advanced metering project. Of course, this project's a multi-year project. It began back in 2016. It took us quite a while to get the right people in the right seats and get the project on a path of success. Earlier this year, we began the last phase of the project, which is deployment, actually putting the meters out in the field. We had planned to take 12 to 14 months to finish that phase. As of right now, we're looking at 9 months. And so we've made some pretty significant gains in terms of the deployment. It's been relatively good, I'll say, in terms of deployment. There's been a couple bumps with a few customers here and there with respect to air conditioning units and things like that. But you have that with these deployments. You never quite know, how old the equipment is for any particular house. And so sometimes you trip those units off and there's a problem. But we've been pretty liberal with approving claims from customers, and we've made sure that nobody's been adversely impacted by the deployment. And like I said, we're pretty far ahead of schedule. I do expect there to be some savings. Right now, I think the project is estimated at $41 million. We're probably going to come in a couple million favorable just because we're so far ahead in the deployment. So we're anxious to get those numbers calced and give you guys an update when we're finished with the project. And then next is the other bucket, well, facilities and other. The big number here is for the building across the street, 116. We're getting prepared to refurnish, remodel floors 3 and 4. We selected a contractor a few months back. We're expecting to get them on board early in '24 to begin demolition, construction, and then move in our team in the fall of '24. So that project's moving along. It's been a bit of a long haul as well. The first phase encountered a lot of supply chain issues. We're not expecting those to occur this go around. And there are some other smaller projects in here. There's money in here for the UEC that was mentioned earlier, electric's portion of that facility upgrade. There's an investment in here for traffic signals, the operations center. We fund traffic signals as part of the electric budget. And there's some investments here on the CIS side, the customer information systems, the Cayenta billing system. There's some upgrades that are going to be occurring later this year. And with that, we'll open it up for questions.
Questions from, yeah, go ahead.
So I got my door hanger last week, so
Awesome.
what are we looking at in terms of, like, from the door hanger to the actual?
I think we have it down to 2 weeks in terms of the initial door hanger and the meter being set.
Okay.
And then you'll get another door hanger once
when
it's
they
complete.
do it, okay.
They should knock on your door when they come to swap it out, but we've had reports that that's not occurring consistently.
I think you mentioned previously that physical size of these meters is about the same as they are now, so no, problems with.
We've had one instance where an existing meter was behind a fence, and the new meter was like millimeters bigger. And there was a bit of a rub there, but we addressed that.
Yeah.
That's the only instance where size has come into play.
So my question is, the advanced meters will allow, one of the goals here is to allow time of day price differences. How does that affect the fiscal and just financial stuff for our utility?
Yeah, we haven't begun to analyze that information yet. We're just beginning to get information from these meters, hourly-based usage information. So we have to do a lot of analysis to see what that means for us, what our rates are going to look like. I wouldn't anticipate having time-of-use rates in place until sometime in '26. We really need to have a full year of data for analytic purposes, and we won't be fully deployed until April of next year.
Okay.
So along the same lines too, I expect to be able to leverage this information in the implementation of the TOU rates to offset a significant amount of upgrades to the system that likely are going to be required for unmanaged EV charging with the number of vehicles that are slated to be on the road. The best tool for us to manage that is this project. So it's going to be very important for our ratepayers to have this in place.
Yeah, and we haven't done a good job of messaging advanced metering, like what it means to us. It's much more than just time of use rates. It's an operational tool to really help inform Chris's team on how the system's being used, transformer loading, where there's capacity. It can be used for demand response. There's lots of different functionality that could be used with this infrastructure. And we're looking forward to doing that in the future.
Any other questions for staff? Is there anyone from the public who'd like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Not seeing any public comment. I want to thank you for your presentations, both Chris and Eric. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Next on our agenda is commissioner or staff reports. Are there any more reports from staff? Any reports, questions, or comments from the commission? Does anyone have any items they would like to suggest for future meetings? All right, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, and do I have a second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned.